Welcome to Football in the 90s Live. Tonight we're going to talk about the Reggae Boys. An interesting one. I'm sure you guys are excited to hear about the final 23 players that were selected to represent Jamaica, to represent us at the upcoming Gold Cup, which is few days away. I'm so excited. As I said, I just can't wait to hear your opinion on the team, and definitely we'll be hearing from Coach Kerry James, Zilan Campbell, a young prospect who aspires to represent at the national level at some point. So tune in, guys. I'm very, as I said, I'm really excited, to be honest, to bring this to you, that we are getting ourselves ready, just like the players are getting themselves ready. I'm sure Sean Thompson would be saying, we should be ready, but this is the reality that we're currently, have to live with, that the team will have to go through, a training camp to see where we are at in terms of our fitness level, and to get the team, that chemistry ticking. So I'm just waiting to be joined by, as I said, Coach Gary James. Coach Dadamuduki should to join us as well. And we're going to hear from the youngster, Zilan Campbell, as well. So we are waiting. We're waiting to hear from these individuals. I'm sure you guys would have been, keeping yourselves, on the right frame of things, where the Euro 2020 is concerned. Disappointed for France drop out, but this is as I said, is the reality of football that we're currently at, and we definitely have to accept. Like I said, we're waiting on our guests to join us, so we can have a chat and to discuss the 23 players that were selected. And if you're currently joining us, I am Coach Akeem Lambert, and welcome to Football in 90. We are definitely as surprising. Okay. So we'll definitely see the boys in a few days' time. The boys are set to make their fourth consecutive, Gold Cup. And I'm sure you guys, based on experience with the previous three Gold Cup tournaments, the statistics is quite impressive. So should the boys aim to win, this one, I believe so. So let's definitely see what we can add to the holistic discussion that has been happening right across the platform where the national team, is concerned. Yeah, bless up David Vias. Thanks for joining us here at Football United. The big man is with us. Coach Gary, thanks for joining us here at Football United. It's always a pleasure to be able to speak with you. So much respect as usual.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure to be here.
Coach, I'm sure you're excited as I am. In a few days' time, we'll definitely see the Reggae Boys, hitting the field, to kickstart their Gold Cup. Um, what are your thoughts? How are you feeling? As I said, you must be excited.
Excited, yes, because obviously it's the biggest regional tournament, and it's the opportunity for us to prepare for the bigger games, really, which is the World Cup qualifying a little later on in the year. So excited to see the team. Obviously, maybe some players missing that you think would be there for different reasons. So it was interesting to see it finally come out today. It was supposed to come out yesterday, right?
Yes.
Finally came out today, so it's interesting to see.
It was funny enough. We were able to acquire the 23 from yesterday,
Mhm.
but we wanted, with all the respect, to give the JFF, the preeminence in handing out the results as best. Our coach, as I said, quite an interesting team. You mentioned just now that some players that you would have expected to be a part, they are not in the team. Can you share with us, those players that you would have expected to play a part going forward?
Well, I think you said that we probably saw the team before the team came out. So I think originally we expected Pinnock to be there. I think Pinnock has decided to the preseason with his team. They just got promoted to the Premier League. So I think he was originally going to be in the team. I think Jamal Lowe, not sure what the issue is with Jamal Lowe, but the team I saw originally, he was part of the team as well. So I think they've put Amari Bell in his place. So I was kind of expecting to see those two. There are a lot of players. It's a 23-man squad. So it's obviously not very easy to pick because you have a million players to pick from. So there are always going to be players on the fringes that either just get in or just get left out. So I think those two probably stand out. I'd have maybe expected to see Orgil as a possibility as well. I think Javon East probably got that spot. So a lot of players that were probably very close to getting in and just didn't make the final 23. So,
Coach, the reality that we're at, and I would have reiterated, those questions for quite some time now. This is our fourth consecutive appearance, at the Gold Cup, and shouldn't we be looking to win this Gold Cup? And the statistics from the last three is quite impressive to me. I don't know what you see. Probably you can share with us, but I think we should be looking to win this competition.
In principle, yes. In reality, I don't know if that's really realistic because of all the different issues that go around the team. We never seem to have our strongest team. We never seem to have the players that we would be expecting to play together, gel together for any period of time. We seem to pick a different squad almost every time we pick a squad. And I don't think it's necessarily to do much with the coach. Obviously the coach is going to get the major responsibility. But, for example, in this tournament, you would think ideally that you would have your strongest 23 players looking into the World Cup qualifying in a couple months. That's not the case, really. When you look at players that still, English-based players that still don't have visas at this stage, so which tells me that we're essentially going to be experimenting in the World Cup qualifiers itself. So shouldn't be the case. We should have been, our squad should be already gelled by now, and we use the Gold Cup as like the final, tweaking, final preparation to see who plays where, who's going to get what kind of playing time. That's not the case. So I think Gold Cup is going to be a bit of an experiment, and then World Cup qualifying probably even more of an experiment because we have, I think, based on what we know, probably 4 or 5 players that are still to come in that probably have not yet played for Jamaica. So for us to miss this opportunity in the Gold Cup to try those players and then have the full squad ready for the World Cup qualifiers is kind of pretty sad. So I agree with you that, like, based on the track record, we've been to the final now. We should be thinking about the next step, but I just don't know how realistic that is based on how we've developed the squad, to be honest.
Interesting there, Coach, because if I'm not sure if the viewers that are currently watching would have gone through the statistics, leading up to this tournament, our last 3 involvement in the Gold Cup, is quite impressive. So, Coach, put it this way, is it a disappointment if we do not reach to the finals of the Gold Cup?
It depends on where you're looking at it from. So you said that we had a lot of success. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of success in the Gold Cup. I was there when we beat the USA. That was a big moment. So if you think of it logically, if we have been performing so well in the Gold Cup over the years and we got to the final, then the next step is to try to win it. Don't necessarily work that way though, because I don't think this is necessarily our strongest possible squad. It's a squad that's strong enough, obviously, to compete, and obviously we want to get that far, get obviously past the group stage and get to the point where it's a knockout games and anything can happen. But when you see the squad that Mexico picked, for example, it's a very strong squad. USA probably have, doing a little bit more experimenting themselves. So you never know what can happen in the game. If we can get to the later stages and get to the key knockout games, the quarterfinal, the semifinal, then anything can happen. But I wouldn't be making Jamaica favorites to win the Gold Cup or anything like that.
And recent, how could we put it now? Because over the last few weeks, the team has been disjointed in terms of, the whole uncertainty leading up to this tournament. And coach, if it is that we have a good record leading up to this Gold Cup for the last 3 years, shouldn't it be that there's a vision for this year that we should definitely be going after the Gold Cup? But based on what we're seeing, obviously it seems like there was no vision for this year to really win the title.
There's no preparation to win the title. Like, you have to prepare and have a structure to try to win. So when you're thinking about the Gold Cup in 2021, you can't just come and say, okay, let's put together a team at the end of 2020 and make a team to win the 2021 Gold Cup. We should be putting plans in place 2-3 years ago. The friendly windows that we had then, we could be preparing a team for this year. I wasn't even thinking so much the Gold Cup. I was thinking the World Cup qualifying, which is a much bigger deal. But obviously it comes just a couple months apart. So if we could have prepared a team properly, obviously we would have had a chance to win the Gold Cup. CONCACAF, is not the strongest region in the world. So apart from Mexico, and if USA has their strongest team, I think most of the other teams are pretty much on similar levels. I don't think on any given day you say we can't beat Costa Rica or Honduras or Panama or Curacao. I think we're all probably on the same level. So if we had a team put together with the intention of winning it, then sure, we could win it. That's not really the case, though. I think when you look at the squads that we pick, I think it's almost, okay, who didn't pull out of the squad, who actually has a visa, and let's pick 23 from that. That's not really the way that you prepare to win a tournament, to be honest.
Well, Coach, earlier I mentioned that we are all excited to get the ball going where the Gold Cup is concerned, but we're still on the edge with what will actually happen, because we have seen, the distractions leading up to this point, and we know that to have a successful program, and in general, if you look at the holistic side of things, you need to be preparing, you need to have that, that togetherness. And I am really disappointed in some aspects. And like I said a few weeks ago, the only positive to me, is to look on the 23 players and say these players have the potential to do great things. So definitely that is what most people are going with. To be honest, I'm sure you would have come across persons who would have given their opinion on currently what is happening. What can you tell us, to expect from this 23 team that you would have seen?
I would expect a solid performance. I think they're going into camp. I think it's today. They have like a 1-week camp in Orlando before they play the game. So they'll at least get a little chance for the team that they picked to gel. A little bit, get some training sessions in and figure out like what kind of formation, etc. they're going to play. So I wouldn't rule out us playing well. And again, the bigger goal has to be the World Cup qualifying. So we have to be kind of looking at this tournament as putting together a team, because we're not going to have much in between now and the World Cup qualifying to put together the team. So I heard the president say the other day that the coach should be looking to advance as far as he can so that he can look at as many players as possible. That is the reality. It's not how a football program is supposed to be run, but that's the reality in that we're not going to get practice games in between now and then, or very many. So I'm not going to say that the World Cup, we're going to use the World Cup as practice. But at the same time, as we try to win, we have to try to figure out what team is going to play, or at least which of these 23 players, because I think there's going to be, once the World Cup qualifying comes around, 4, 5, 6 other ones that at that point are going to be eligible to play, and that will probably in the squad. So you have to figure out of these 23, which 15, 16 are the ones that you're going to be using, and in what roles. So you have to do that at the same time as giving obviously a respectful performance and trying to win, because if we lose a couple of the games in the first round, the coach is going to be under pressure, as coaches always are. So we have to kind of balance trying to win with trying to find a team to play in the World Cup qualifying in a couple of months, I think.
Well, Coach, one of the things that I've been continually been saying, over the last few days is that, and when I saw the list of players yesterday, the name of players that are currently on the list, how many of those players were involved in the games leading up to the World Cup?
I think quite a few, to be honest. I think not this last trip to Japan, but the one to Saudi Arabia. A lot of these same players played. Obviously, we didn't have that ideal situation because we had the travel issues, and the first game was almost a waste of time because we didn't have the whole squad to pick from. But a lot of these players are similar to that set of players that played in that Saudi Arabia set of games. We saw a couple of the USL players. This squad only has, I think, 3 USL players. Kind of surprised to me because we've been basing a lot of our squads in recent times on USL players. I think we only have 3 and only 1 local player, which is the Humble Lions goalkeeper. So players mostly that are playing in Europe or in the MLS. So which is understandable because you generally want to pick players that are playing at a higher level. In Jamaica, situation is not always possible because sometimes we don't have a lot of players playing at a very, very high level in top leagues. So we have to fill out the squad with players that are playing maybe a little bit lower of a level. But I think you just have to pick a squad that you think, 1, you're familiar with, and 2, that you think can do well together in the tournament and look forward to I know I keep saying World Cup qualifying because that's what's on my mind mostly. But I think you have to kind of look forward to the World Cup qualifying even while you're playing the World Cup.
Coach, where are our overseas-based players that were a part of the preparation leading up to this tournament? Where are they? Where are they? And where are they, you guys?
Yeah. And that's the problem. That's the problem that the coach has. I tell people all the time, being the coach of Jamaica is one of the worst jobs in world football because the expectations are very high of the fans because we think that we have this great pool of players, but we have no kind of preparation normally for the team. So we're pretty much just throwing a team onto the field every year, and saying, okay, let's try to play great football. It's not really going to happen that way. So a lot of it is beyond the coach's control in that if you pick a player, if you pick 2 players in the squad or 3 players in the squad, and they send you an email saying, I want to stay for preseason training or have a personal issue, then it's your choice as to whether, okay, you just don't call them again or just accept their I don't want to say excuse, their reasoning why they can't be here. But I think you have a lot of that, especially with the English-based players where maybe they want to wait till the last second, which is when the World Cup qualifying starts, and I think you'll see more of them, which is why, in my opinion, I think you have to be really selective in who you're going for. I don't think we should just cast a big net and try to find 50 English players. And I don't think we have the time to do that. So we have to be more selective in the players that are playing overseas that have never been part of the program before, and say, okay, are there 3 or 4 players that have such quality that they can improve our starting 11, and they're so much better than everybody else that we have, that we need to go for those players. Because I see some of the English-based players, and I'm definitely not one of the ones that don't want any English-based players. I want all local players or anything like that. But I think we kind of overdo it sometimes with the amount of English-based players at this time. I don't think you can try to gel a team so late in the process, still looking at so many players. I think we have to be really selective in figuring out which 3 or 4 or 5 can help us. Target those players, see how serious they are. If they're not serious, move on. If they're serious, get their paperwork done. It's amazing to me that we can be talking about visa and Jamaican passport at a Gold Cup, which is a couple months before the World Cup qualifying. To me, it's kind of ridiculous. Javon said I should coach Jamaica. I don't think so. I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, Javon, welcome to football in '90. I see one of our team members here, Ronaldo Wellington, would have represented, at the national level. And, much respect, guys, for tuning in. I'm joined by Coach Kerry James, and he's been sharing, his opinion on what has been actually happening with the national team. Coach, if we were to look at the players who are missing, and let's just look at the attackers who are part of the friendlies leading up to the World Cup. Micheal Antonio wasn't a part, but his name was always in the media. I thought he would have, stepped up and actually be a part of this team. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the word with Antonio has to do with passport again. So I don't think he's actually eligible. At this point, I think they said that there was some discrepancy with the passport where he had to actually be physically present in Jamaica to fix it. But I think he's on postseason vacation, so he's not able to be here. Well, not here. I'm in Miami, but in Jamaica to fix it. So I think that's the issue with Antonio. I think Gray has some other issue because I think he would have been in the squad as well. He has some other issue where he can't be a part of it. And then, like I said before, there are a lot of players. It's a 23-man squad, so it's a lot of players that will be very close to being in the squad that's not in it. Javon himself, I think, if you watch his games for Vancouver, he's starting now as a right back. I think he got injured the last game, which may be a reason why he's not probably a part of the final 23. Because if you look at the right back position is very open, I think. We have players like Alvas Powell and Fisher, and probably Javon would be in that bracket now that he's getting that experience at MLS level. So a lot of players that I think would be very close to being in the squad. Lambert is another one. Kieran Lambert, he was in the squad the last friendly matches. A little surprising not to see him in it since we don't really have a defensive midfielder in the squad. So I think defensive midfield is another a big area where we could really improve the squad with a player or two. So those are the players that I think we're probably close to being in that we're not in. A lot of these other players, you probably don't know the reason, like the Kemar Lawrence, that information is not public as to why he's not a part of the squad. Pinnock openly said that he wanted to do the preseason because his team just came up to the Premier League. So a lot of those players that you'd expect to be there are not there. Some of them will come open and say why. Some of them will try to keep it private. But I think you'll have a lot of them that will be looking to get into the World Cup qualifying squad. And that is where I think we need to be really, really selective.
Coach, interesting. You mentioned two key points that I really want to stick with at this moment. You mentioned the central defensive midfield, and you also mentioned, the transition of these players. Well, analytic there, Antonio. You mentioned a few names. I want to look closely on the central defensive midfield role, like you mentioned. This is an area for concern for us, and it has been evident more and more because we have seen the coach use one of our center halves in the central defensive position. What do we do though? Because teams will use this, and it's often been used. The whole situation, from the consolidation phase, which is critical. From the start to the consolidation phase is critical. But how do we correct the situation though? Because as you mentioned, Kevin Lambert is possibly one of our most consistent players over the last few years since he has been a part of the national team. He would have been a part of the preparation leading up to the Gold Cup team being selected, and he's not in the team. Uh, Persons mentioned, Hector is there. You have Johnson, and is it? I can't remember the next lad who can play that position. But let me be clear. Will Johnson give you that important pass and command that you need to play that position, to master that position? Will we get that?
I don't think so. I'm not a fan of Hector in the central defensive midfield. I don't think he's a midfielder. I think he's more a centre back. I think in the squad that we picked, the 23 that we picked, I think they'll be depending a lot on Daniel Johnson to play there. He played there very well in some of the matches that we've seen him so far. I don't think he's a defensive midfielder, to be honest with you, but I think he can play the role pretty well. But like when I look at the squad, I don't see a defensive midfielder in the squad because I don't consider Hector a defensive midfielder, and I don't really consider Daniel Johnson a defensive midfielder either. So that's a position that we have to fill. Obviously, when I talked about being selective about the English-based players, Hayden is the obvious one that would fill that void, but I think he recently said that he's still waiting for an England call. So good luck to him trying to get an England call. That would have been the obvious choice. I think Kevin Stewart, news came out today, now has a Jamaican passport. So I don't know if that's a rumor or that's true. If that's true, that's obviously a player that's played at a pretty high level. And that plays that position. So I think to me, it's a big hole in our squad. And it's been for a while. So it's for Kevin, for example, not to be in the squad at all is surprising to me because I guess we can go with Daniel Johnson. We can kind of make a hybrid midfield where everybody kind of shares responsibility. But I would really love to see a good holding midfielder. I think it's a key position we know in today's game. So for us not to have one at this stage, and we're looking towards not so much the Gold Cup but the World Cup qualifiers, to not have a steady defensive midfielder that you can write on the team sheet every single game is kind of disappointing, at this time. So I think, to be honest, I think we have to find one. I don't think we have one in this squad.
To all our viewers who continue to support us here at Football in 19, we thank you for your continued support. And what we do here at Football in 90 is to give our players, the opportunity to share their experience and exposure over the years. And quite a few of the players, who are currently in the 23 would have done, interviews with them and to hear on their experience and more importantly, what they were able to overcome leading to being a Jamaican national. And I wanted to be clear, I see a lot of comments about Micheal Hector. And over the last few years, and prior to this interview, I would have done some reflection on this potential, player. And one of the things I realized that each time that this player would have represented us in the probably past 2 years, I, to be honest, haven't seen as much that really warrant him a position, to be honest. I'm going to be clear, a position within this team at this moment. At this moment, Micheal Hector, and I'm going to put it out there, is not at his best. Does he have potential? Yes, he has. But at this moment in time, going into the Gold Cup, I am unsure what Micheal Hector will bring to the table for the Reggae Boys. I duly hope when things get started, we'll probably see a Busquets in the position because I'm confident that he will play. But this is the reality that we're living in. We will have players who we want to be a part of the team that will miss out. But as I said, this is a reality that we're living in, and we have to support the guys as best as possible. But I'm just clearing the air that Micheal Hector to me is a good talent, but at this moment in time, this particular position that he is in drafted into play is off the books for me. So
Yeah.
that's it regarding my whole thing on this situation, coach. But we know these players, like I mentioned, going forward, they have been playing overseas, getting the necessary experience and exposure. What should we look for with these players going forward? Would have listened to them talking, day in, day out about what they want to achieve with the national team. Now the opportunity is presented to these players. Of course, what should we expect from the boys, going into this World Cup?
I think they just have to do their best, which is a cliche, but it's true. They just have to kind of perform as well as they possibly can. They have that little training camp that hopefully will get them at least a little bit of gelling time together. And then obviously we go into the games, and the games are tricky games. Suriname, Costa Rica, those are teams, and I think we're going to have probably Guatemala in our group, depending on how the qualifiers go. So those are not easy games, and as a coach, you're always under pressure. So I can say all well and good, they should be thinking about World Cup qualifying and trying to get their team ready for that. But we know if they lose the first game, or if they don't get out of the group, or if they don't do as well as people think, the coach is going to be under pressure. That's the reality. That's the reality in football generally. So I think they just have to go out and do their best. The ones that are probably around the fringe of the squad, this is their opportunity to really solidify or cement their place once World Cup qualifiers come around. Because out of this squad, we know that 5 or 6, Bailey and Bobby Reid and Damion and marriapa, all of those are going to be part of the squad once the big games come around, the World Cup qualifying. But there's some that are on the fringes that if they don't perform in this World Cup, they won't be part of World Cup qualifying. Because like I said, I think you still have 5 or 6 players to come in that are going to make the team stronger. So if 5 or 6 players come in, that means 5 or 6 players have to come out. And so some of the players that are at the fringes really have to kind of cement their spot by playing well. And I think that's what you'll see. Every coach has their favorites. So like when you look at Hector seems to be a top of favorite. So it's not like he doesn't bring anything at top of the squad. He brings experience in a high level of football. He brings versatility. He can play center back. I guess he can play center mid, even though I don't really see him as a center mid. But that's how it is. Like all the players, even Lamar, because Lamar got a little playing time in some of the other friendly games. When Lamar gets his chance, he needs to take his chance. Like young player, Tyreek is in the squad, even though he doesn't play that much at his club. So all of these players that get the chance, when they do get the chance, they really need to take the chance and solidify their spot when it comes to World Cup qualifying. Because I think there's going to be a lot of competition once we get a couple months down the road.
Oh, coach, you're stuck to the point, and like I said, it's a reality that we're currently living in, guys. And we in the last Gold Cup tournament that we took part in was 2017. We won against Morocco 2-0. We played against Mexico. We played against John Miller with Mexico, against El Salvador. That was 1-1. Quarterfinals, we beat Canada 2-1. Semifinals, we beat Mexico 1-0. And I'm sure you guys remember the final, losing 2-1 to the US. And I'm going through because I want you guys to look at the reality that we're currently facing, not just as a football fans, but the holistic approach that is needed to achieve some success. This national team has been doing real well over the last 3 years in the World Cup. 2019. What happened in 2019? We went to the semifinals of the Gold Cup in 2019. And I continue to ask the question, shouldn't Jamaican national team look to win the Gold Cup this year? Because the last 3 seasons has been really impressive. If our target is not to win this Gold Cup, in my eyes, it is a big letdown to the supporters and the football lovers right across the platform. We should have been preparing. We should have backed the players, the resources, the time that is required to achieve some success. And again, if you don't believe me, go do your research. Look at the last 3 Gold Cups that we have been to and tell me if I'm not right. We should be looking to win this. But in order to win a championship, or you must prepare. Did it do it? Does it like we had any preparations or any target, what our objective coming into this World Cup? There were no assurance that we were targeting this World Cup to win it. As I said, the statistics are there, guys. You can go and check it out. But for me, we should be aiming to win, because the players over the last 3 years would have set the platform for us to aim high. And, you know, guys, as I said, this is obviously the reality that we're living in. We have to continue to show support to these players. These players who are making significant contribution to our football. And I continue to use football in 90. This organization to shed light on our players, because the players would have done great leading up to this Gold Cup. But for the players to get over that line, it requires an holistic approach from everyone that is involved. And that is what I really wanted to get up probably a few weeks now. That we should be looking to win. And to me right now, I don't really know what to say. But I believe in the players. And hopefully my belief in them will prevail. Coach, you know, you would have had the experience to, you know, travel around the world, you know, to support this national team. You know, you would have had that experience. I want you to share with our viewers, you know, some of the things that you would have encountered, you know, from 98 coming right to the ranks. Because you'd have been to the World Cup games as well.
1998, so you're aging me. I was not having. I was born in 1999, actually. Just kidding.
Wow.
But yeah, some good times following the team over the years. Obviously, the 1998 was the highlight. Because when we qualified for the World Cup in 1998, I don't think anybody thought that would be the only time we'd ever do it. I thought you'd think that, okay, maybe that's the first time, and maybe in the future we're going to do it again. We haven't done it since. So to get the opportunity to be there and see all of the games, the Jamaica games, was great. You know, scoring just before halftime in the first game. I think the fans were cheering from that minute all the way until the game restarted. So, you know, exciting times, and obviously beating Japan in the last game, getting our first World Cup win with the top scoring fight. That was great. The Gold Cup over the last few years, I've been to a lot of those games as well. I think I've been to maybe 6 or 7 of those games in the last couple of years. So that was exciting times as well, especially the USA win. Kind of came out of nowhere to some people. So, you know, being one of the only Jamaicans in the stands with pretty much all US supporters. And us beating them, that was great. So hopefully we have some more of those memories when this current version, you know, happens. So it happened to draw the Jamaica group in Orlando, which is close to me. So I'm, you know, going to be at those games as well. So hopefully have some more good times, some more wins, you know, and putting Jamaica on the map, which we've done very well in the Gold Cup over the last few editions. We've, in my opinion, you mentioned that we should be going one step further. I think the getting to the finals a couple of times, I think is more overachievement than anything else, because I don't think we have the football program that you would say that we are preparing to get anywhere. I think it was more down to just great job by the players and obviously the coaching staffs at those times to get us there. Because the program, I think, doesn't match the results that we've gotten at the Gold Cup. I think we've been way over like what our program suggests we should be. So I think it's maybe optimistic to say that we should be winning it now because we've got the final couple times. But you never know, it's football. And once you get past the group stage, you see it even in the Euros where a team dominates, win all 3 games, and a third place team come and beat them. So once it gets to the knockout stage, anything can happen, and it's only 3 knockout games you need to win the tournament. So you never know what can happen. So I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping for a good performance. I'm hoping that those players that are on the fringe kind of really stamp their class and show that they deserve to be part of the big squad. So those are the things that I'm looking for.
Thank you very much, Coach. I would really love to get some experience where that is concerned. I'm hoping that next year will be my first appearance at a Gold Cup game, but it all comes down to the Reggae Boyz, making this dream a reality. And Coach, we're going to just zoom in, for a few on the 23 players that were selected. Andre Blake, Dylan Barnes, and Dennis Taylor. Dennis Taylor is a local lad here in Jamaica who made the trip. He's the only local lad who made the trip, and I'm sure he will want to have a taste, of the Gold Cup. But will the big man let him? I think it's all coming down to probably the best goalkeeper in CONCACAF.
Yeah, I don't think that's the Humble Lions goalkeeper, right? So I think it's good for him to be in the squad to get that experience. Usually with a goalkeeper, it's just experience that you're gonna get. It's not playing time, unless there's unless something goes wrong. Like you said, we have probably the best goalkeeper in the whole tournament. So unless something unforeseen happens, or unless we just win the first 2 games so easy and we have the opportunity to play some backups in the 3rd game, I don't think you'll see the backup goalkeepers at all in the tournament. Hopefully, because obviously, no disrespect to the 2 keepers that were chosen, but there's a huge gulf in class between Andre Blake and any other goalkeeper that we can pick. So I think it's more for him to be there for the experience, which I kind of sad that Jadine is not, there, because I think he's been the one that we've been picking as a young goalkeeper to try to gain the experience. But I don't think any of the 2 backup goalies will play, hopefully.
Coach, I'm happy you mentioned, JD. This youngster would have gone to a lot to get selected at the national level. He would have been a part of the Gaze League to this point. And I too expect, him to be a part of this team, to gain some experience, along this journey. But unfortunately, we will have to stick with what we have: the Dylan Barnes, the Dennis Taylor, and the big man Andre Blake. Andre Blake, what a talent, and so proud to be a Jamaican, so proud to be a lover of football. Because when you see one of your fellow, countrymen doing really well in the MLS, standing out day in and day out, it's something to talk about. Coach, you're in the US, you're close to the involvements, where Andre has been and what he has achieved. What are your thoughts on him as a player?
Andre Blake is just brilliant. From all the way back from his college days, he went to UConn, which was one of the big programs at the time, and it was kind of proud to see him get to that level. We didn't know he was going to get to be the best goalkeeper in MLS. In future years, but for him to kind of advance from there, into MLS as a starting goalkeeper, which we haven't seen before that, and then obviously move to the level of where he's probably the best in the league. Not probably, I think he's the best in the league. That's great for a Jamaican coming all the way up the ranks. I'm hoping that at some point he'll even move past MLS. I think that's the next step to see if maybe he can get into Europe. I do think he has a talent for it, and you can see day in, day out in what he does for Philly. Because you see a lot of games where they're under pressure and he just turns a game that should be a tie into a win. And that kind of a goalkeeper is invaluable to a team. So for us to have him as our number one is great, and as our leader is great. And obviously we're all proud of him because he's really come a long way and gotten to a very high level. So proud of him.
And since we're talking about the big man Andre Blake, few weeks ago we would have had a discussion, on the platform here at Football at 90, and to listen to the man who's the captain of the national team. He has gone beyond his expectations as a player because he wants to give back to his country, and that is what you want from your national players. Once they go there and get the experience, being exposed to different cultures, they come back to Jamaica and educate young players. And a lot of respect for Andre Blake, a true human being, isn't it?
And I know he does a lot. He's not the most flashy person in the world, so a lot of the things that he does behind the scenes people don't know about. But he does a lot to help locally as well. So, big up to Andre.
Yes. Coach, our defenders, we have Amari Bell, Oneil Fisher, Micheal Hector, Kemar Lawrence, Damion Lowe, Adrian marriapa, Liam Moore, and Alvas Powell. It's good to have Alvas Powell back in the national fold. I'm sure you would have had some experience, when he was more frequent in the national team. What can
he was here as well. He was playing for Inter Miami at one point. So unfortunately he didn't get a lot of playing time here and had to move to get some more playing time. But I think that right back position is a position that's up for grabs. Whether it be Fisher, whether it be Alvas, and I mentioned Javon. I think that injury is kind of an unfortunate timing because I don't know if it would be a very tough choice to figure out. Usually you take two right backs, and I think we have three that are playing well. So I think there's competition there when we look a little bit forward to the World Cup qualifying. So I think the defense will balance enough to me. I think Kemar Lawrence probably would have been in the squad. I think there's probably some. I don't know if it's a visa issue. I'm not sure exactly what the issue is with him. Because I think he actually has a visa already. So it may be like an availability issue with his club or something like that. So I think Amari Bell will step in, and I think he did a good job the game that I saw him play. And obviously Kemar is back. And we have a little bit of depth in the center of defense now. We have Damion, we have Liam Moore, we have our favorite player, Hector, that can play there as depth if necessary. And obviously we have marriapa, who is also versatile, can play as a center back, probably more of a center back at this stage of his career than a wing back. So we have him also, and he also gives you the ability. I think we've played a couple of games where we've seen three in the back. So I think the fact that we have enough options at center back for that to be an option for us to play three in the back is good. So I think I kind of like the balance of the defense.
Thank you, Coach. Coach, I know you'd have the big man Andre Blake in goal, and as we go along, I'm trying to get your starting 11. So we're currently now at the defenders. Can you go and share with us your
I would probably play with Damion and with Moore in the center of defense. Obviously, Andre in goal, Kemar at left back, and then the right back to me is kind of open. Because Fisher probably is more game ready than Alvas is. So I'd probably go with Fisher at right back. So Fisher, Lawrence, Moore, and Damion.
So guys, there you have it, and the man will go with Fisher, I'm sure I'm a big fan of Alvas, so I hope he does play a big part, he has some experience in there.
Yeah.
So incredible, Coach, and Damion Lowe is creating history for himself as a player and as a professional, having the opportunity to speak with him. He gives you confidence as even if you're on the other end of the show, he continues to motivate and inspire people that their dreams and aspirations are quite ideal to be achieved. And that is what you want in a team. You want a team of leaders, team of players who are able to explain and to express themselves.
and to be that strong voice within the group. And I'm sure, Damion is definitely one of those talents. Um, he's now an ambassador at Digital, so you're now seeing more impact from the man who is thousands of miles away from his home country. What do you think about him as a player? Because, he'd have come through the ranks. His father would have represented at national level. So tell us your thoughts on him as a player.
Yeah, Damian has come on leaps and bounds. Because we talk about USL and maybe our players using USL maybe as a stepping stone to somewhere else. And from what he did in USL to what he did, the first time he went overseas, and then bringing it back, the experience back in the national team and how well he was playing for the national team was amazing. I think you make a good point about leadership in that it's not only the captain that's going to be the leader. So you have to have players in the squad. Sometimes the captain may not necessarily be the most talkative person. Sometimes you'll have a person that's the more vocal, motivating type person. And I think that's more Damion. And I think you saw him take up that role in the unfortunate thing with the pay dispute, and you saw him take up a leadership role to kind of represent the rest of the players. And I think you're seeing that on the field as well. So it's just great to see his evolution as a player and as a leader, because I think he's come a long, long way for both of those things.
Definitely, coach, and we'll definitely look at our midfielders now that made the trip. We have Daniel Johnson, Tyreek Magee, Lamar Walker, Devon Williams, Junior Flemings. This is our midfielders that made the trip, to represent at the World Cup. I want to speak on Tyreek Magee a little bit, coach. A player who hasn't been playing competitive football for quite some time now. It has made the team. A lot of persons I have had a chat with throughout the week would have questioned, whether he should be a part of the team or not. And I would have asked why would they recommend him not to be a part of the team? And the responses are as well. He hasn't been playing competitive football for probably about a year or two, if we're to get the statistics right. What do you expect from Tyreek Magee being away from football for such a long time and coming into a competitive field like the World Cup?
It's tough to tell because you don't know physically where he is. You can be training. Training is different from match fitness, as you know. So as fit as you are in training, you can't really replicate the experience that you get on the field. So it's not the ideal situation. I think him and Ravel is probably in a similar boat in that both of them are kind of, one is at the club and not playing much, one is kind of unattached. So for that to be two of the midfielders, that's normally you'd say it's troubling because in a bigger team, a bigger football country team, you really won't have that. Because you have so many choices of players that are playing at a high level that there wouldn't be any reason for us to pick like a player that's not playing or a player that's unattached. Jamaica's situation, I think, is a little bit different. I think a player with Tyreek Magee's quality, you always want to have exposure for him in the national team. So, we saw him from all the way from 17 when I went up to watch them at IMG just up the road with the U20s and that Boyz scored against Mexico. Like the talent is so prodigious that it's important for us to have him involved. So he may not be a starter, but it's important to have him get the experience, as much experience as he can. And when he gets on the field, like I mentioned, he has to be one of the ones that can stamp his class and show us the ability that he has, because the ability he has is in abundance. Yeah, he's a very talented player. So ideally, he would be playing week in and week out, obviously, because he would be fitter and you'd be more ready. I think you still need to include a player like that in the squad, because I think he's kind of, one of the future of our football, really. So I think it's important for us to have him there.
I strongly agree, coach. Fantastic, young player. Having the opportunity to speak with him, he has a wide view on his career and what he wants to achieve. So hopefully, as you say, he's still young, but time is against him if we're to be honest. You know, in Europe, young players is a bracket of 20, and if you're not 20, you're not young in Europe, in this moment. So we hope that something, dramatically will happen for him soon, so he can, kickstart his career because loads of potential to
Hmm.
go and be a world talent. So let's see. Yes, so we mentioned the midfielders, coach, and Junior Flemings for me who would have tear our schoolboy football apart.
Donovan's team, and there was like a controversy there that caused him to have to leave the team. So it's good to see him back. He's a very good player, and he was tearing up USL. Not only in terms of the way that he was playing, but also in terms of his goal scoring output. Doing very, very well. To me, one of the better attacking players in that league. Um, so he was doing very well. So I think he's worth his place in the squad. Again, he's versatile. Kappa tend to play him a little bit deeper, obviously, than he plays at his club. Normally, play more as a midfielder in the national team, but versatile player can get forward, can score goals, and still has a work rate to do the work that you need to be done in midfield. Especially when our squad, like I'm looking at the midfielders now, none of them are defensive midfielders to me. We have a bunch of similar type players. So whenever you have a squad without a defensive midfielder, a team without a defensive midfielder, that means you have to share the workload in terms of defensively. So I think he kind of fits that bill in that, the high work rate, and when he gets forward, he's dangerous. We haven't really seen the goal scoring out of the national team yet. Hopefully, we'll see that as the months go by.
Sean Thompson in our comment section, he anticipates, your midfield selection. So let's see.
I think Sean is also gonna be in Orlando watching the game, so um, we'll see what his analysis is of the players once he gets there. But yeah,
Sean will definitely hit you up on football in 90 to see how we can merge, and Sean has been very close to us, trying to get the latest and also giving us some of the latest as well. So much respect to you, Sean. Coach, your midfield selection.
oof, that's the toughest one for me because to me they're also similar. So I'm looking at the squad here. I definitely Daniel Johnson's going to play, and more than likely with the fact that we have no defensive midfielder, he's going to be one of the defensive midfielders. So I think it's going to depend on what formation we play, whether we play four in the back or whether we play three in the back. But I would think Daniel Johnson would play. Ravel is in the squad. I think it's still up in the air with his whole situation about entering the US. So if he's actually a part of the squad, I think Ravel will probably go one of the three as well. And I probably would go with either Speedy, Williams, or Flemo. So one of those two, I think, will be the third one. So I think Ravel, um, Daniel Johnson, and probably I would go with Speedy Williams as the three.
Speedy Williams, today I had the opportunity to have a talk with one of my coaching, colleagues, on Speedy Williams' contribution to the national team. He has come in and done himself well, and we would like to send some commendations to the lad as well because it's not easy to make a transition in this moment and to do so well. So much commendation to Speedy. So guys, Sean, you definitely, you heard coach's midfield selection, and it's quite interesting so far, and ticking the boxes where coach is making, his contribution. So coach, the attackers now we have Leon Bailey, Cory Burke, Javon Shamar Nicholson, Bobby Reid, and Blair. So, well, that reminds me of Manchester United, forward line, with all due respect. I know you're a Liverpool fan, but we have the Anthony Martial, the Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho. You know, the Jamaica team is the forward line is quite. What can we call it, coach? You got, we have to find a good word to describe our attackers because we have players who can hold the ball well. We have players who can make good runs. We have players who can run within the channels, to create space and other opportunities for players around them. We have Leon Bailey, and I want to speak a little bit on Leon Bailey as well because Leon Bailey has been one of the standout players, at Bayern Leverkusen over the last few years. But when he reaches to the national team, he hasn't set the world on fire. What do you think? What do you think is happening there?
Different style of play. Obviously, he's getting more service when he plays for Bayer Leverkusen than when he plays for Jamaica. Different style of play, different tactics, and the fact that we really don't play much together as a team. Like every time we pick a team, it seems to be a different team. But I agree that this is a deep set of forwards. It's going to be the deepest position in the team once we get down to the World Cup qualifying because this group doesn't include Andre Gray. It doesn't include Antonio if we finally get Antonio's paperwork started out. So it's going to be very challenging to get playing time to figure out who's going to play. So if I was picking the team and I was picking our front three, I would probably go with Shamar as the center forward, and I'd probably go with Bobby Reid and Leon Bailey. So Leon Bailey on one side and Bobby Reid on the other. So I think that would be the strongest of the six that we can do. Even though in that game, the last of the friendlies, Blair Turgott, I thought played really well, but I don't think he would displace any of those three.
So, coach, you're saying Leon Bailey, Shamar Nicholson, and Bobby Reid.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned just now that Leon hasn't been setting the world on fire since he has been representing the country, but at Bayern Leverkusen he has been doing that quite a lot. What is the factors around this? Is it because he's playing with different players? Is it because these players he's a level above these players? Where does he fall within the practice? Because we want to see him. We want to see that light, from Leon.
Yeah, we'd love to see the same Leon from Leverkusen in the national team. So I think that's going to take time because, club football is much different from international football. They're playing with these same players day in, day out. So they know what their front three is every time. They're working with the same front three, every single training, every single game, unless the coach decides to change it up. Whereas Leon probably has not played with these players a lot. He's played a couple of friendly games, but sometimes we change different players, both in midfield and in attack. So it's going to be different. I'm hoping that we'll kind of at least start to get a little bit of understanding between the players. I know Leon plays, for example, very well with Shamar in a couple of games that we've seen both of them play. So that would be a nice combination. But the more you play together, is the more understanding you're going to have of each other's runs, each other's positioning. It's difficult to do at international level. It's very difficult to do at Jamaican international level where we don't really have a proper program where the players are playing every international window. We're playing 2 games and we're getting to see the same players over and over and over. We don't really have that. So even little camps like the one that we're going to have starting today, that little week that we have with them together, hopefully we can start getting them to gel a little bit and understanding how they play together a little bit more. And we'll see some fireworks from the forward line because I think we have the ability in the forward line. Shamar has come a very long way. Bobby Reid is playing at a high level of football, and obviously Leon. So if we can get them clicking together, that could be a potentially very good front three.
Coach, what will Shamar Nicholson bring to the forward line?
Hunger and youth and just a drive, because if you see him play, the speed that he goes, both in terms of closing down when the other team has the football, and then hunger in front of the goal. I think you saw it I think we played a friendly game against USA, which is when everybody started knowing about Shamar Nicholson with that goal he scored from outside the box. But every time I see him play, there's like a hunger to his game. And maybe that's brought out from sort of where he's coming from and advancing all this way up to be a professional footballer from where he's coming from is great. And I think you see that in his game. So I think it's that hunger and that desire in front of goal. And I think you need that when you have, especially if you have a lot of good, wing players that can create those chances or get you in good positions. You need that striker that has that hunger. So apart from whatever striker we're going to bring from outside, one of the English players, I think to me, he's a player that I would always consider, whether as a starter or somebody that you're bringing off the bench. But I think he brings that hunger to the team, that desire to score. So,
Coach, are you saying that this man is possibly our best player in this position?
I'd pick him. I know that's not a popular sentiment because we have a lot of players that are maybe playing at a higher level, Andre Gray, etc. But unless we get a player that's like an Antonio level, a Ivan Toney level, because I don't think he's made up his mind whether he wants to play or not for Jamaica. Unless we get one of those players, and obviously Antonio is also a player that can play on the wing. But I am a fan of Shamar Nicholson playing in the center. So I'm not the coach, so I can't tell you whether he's going to be the starter or not, but I would always have him as an option, whether he's a starter or when you have your full squad, if you think there's somebody better to put there. But based on his performances recently, and like what I mentioned about the hunger and desire in front of goal, I would always have him as a consideration to be a starter.
Which I like your response when I asked if this man is possibly our best player in this moment. As I said, guys, we continue to have these interviews with these players, and we did caught up with Shamar, and to listen to Shamar, you definitely would want to coach him as a player. You want to coach players who have hunger, who have a drive and a passion for the game, and they use it each day as something to be a success, for something to change the lives of people. And when you listen to him telling you about his experience growing up, where he's from, and know the impact that this young man has on Jamaica and a whole, it's quite interesting. And I do agree with your coach. And I would have said it in the last interview that he's possibly our best player, in his position. The way how he can hold the ball, As I said, you want players who will be aggressive in these positions, and that's exactly what you will get from Shamar Nicholson. You'll never get half. You will get the full of everything, Great young son, and we wish him all the best. I can't wait to see these boys out there, and I'm sure, Shamar will do us good. Well, interesting. Bobby Reid, well, decent talent. Did really well, I see him being rotated quite a lot for Fulham, in last season. So it shows his versatility is going to be crucial as well. If there's a situation around the back, the coach can definitely have him to use in that position. And you did mention the big man Leon Bailey, who will definitely have a part to play. I've been saying this quite a while now, There are talks about Micheal Antonio coming in. If he does come into this team at some point, Shamar Nicholson for me is still the man to lead the line. I know Micheal would have had some leading experiences at a top level, but this youngster has a wide range of progression ahead of him, and I think it's up to us here in Jamaica and up to the technical team and the members to guide him and to help him to achieve, and not to derail his success, because he's definitely on the right path, So we wish Shamar all the best, and we're confident he will make, a contribution. Coach, I'm really happy that you're able to give us your starting 11. Decent team, I expected you to, I think you'd have had, Javon is probably in the mix, but quite surprising, still, decent players there at the top. I did say we have quite a few options to choose from, and we're not short in that position, as you mentioned.
Yeah, because Javon is actually very similar in a way to Shamar, even though he plays probably a little bit wider, in that he's hungry. So he's chasing everything. I think he's one of Tapa favorites. So we mentioned Hector being Tapa favorite. I think Javon is also a lot of people maybe questioning why he's in the squad. Because maybe they're looking at more flashy type players, but Javon East is very effective in his own way, especially when the other team has the ball. And we know that he had a very good season. I think he plays in Costa Rica, and he had a very good season there, scored a lot of goals. So we're just hoping that those goals start to translate to the national team as well, because I think everything else he does without the ball is very invaluable to the team when he does play. So I think, again, it's just the goals. We know everybody is in love with the goals. Goals are what with the match. Put him on the field, just like we said with Shamar, you can count on him to go 100 miles an hour 100% of the time. I think Javon is very similar in that way.
Yeah, definitely, coach. You shared your starting them with us. What approach do you think, the technical team will look to make? Is it that the gaffer will stick to his personal philosophy of being defensive? Because you'd have seen quite a lot of numbers, where that is concerned. Because if it is so as we are saying it now, I am looking at probably two older midfielders and when I said two older midfielder, I'm just saying my elector might just come in as another, because this is often the coach's philosophy, to try to protect his back four and try to move on the counter. It will be good for us, and I think I think if used the right way, we'll be able to to master this system in terms of the elite players that we have up top in terms of Liam Bailey and the speed, the penetration. Without it will be good for us, but it's all come down to how well the team will be able to make that big step. But again, these players haven't been playing with each other for who knows when. So what do we look forward to? What approach?
I think it's going to be a lot of counter attack. I think ideally we'd love to see Jamaica probably be a little bit more aggressive when the other team has the ball. I think we saw that a little bit in the Serbia game. I don't know if it was by design or when we started to press them, we showed they look really shaky trying to come out of the back. So maybe we just decided to press them for the rest of the half. Because that first half against Serbia, I thought that's the best I've seen Jamaica press, in a long, long time. I think the players that we have, the physicality that we have and the speed, it would be a nice way to play. But again, that normally you have to train a lot to get to that point where everybody understands what the pressing triggers are. When you press, when you lay off, that's not just automatic. That's something that you get a lot of training to be able to get to do in unison. So I don't think we're going to see that much. I think it's going to be a lot of, like what you said, players behind the ball and counter-attacking with the speedy players that we have up front. I would love to see by the time we get to World Cup qualifying for us to press a little bit more, because I think that's something that could be effective for us, but I don't see it happening if we don't really have a lot of practice games. And like this 1 week camp where we get to see things in training and get people to understand like roles in training. I think ideally we'd love to press, but I don't really see us doing it that much. So I think it's going to be a lot of counter-attacking.
I'm wondering if all the players are, have arrived, because
That's a good question.
The situation, the situation, so I'm hoping all the players will be on spot, and we don't hear in the media tomorrow morning that, so that's quite, the reality of what we have been enduring with the national team for quite a while now. Coach, we have seen some new additions to the technical team. I'm sure you've been following. Meron Garden, Paul Hall is now a part of the technical team. They're the assistant to coach Theodore Whitmore. I'm sure you can shed a little more light on the situation with Paul Hall coming in and what he can bring forward. Because one of the things persons were saying, he can be the bridge between our English-based players. And if we're currently looking at the team now, there's not the English-based players are not involved as much as we would have expected prior to preparation. So what do we really, should be looking forward to from our new national assistant coach?
Well, I think it's a good addition, and I think what you said about being sort of the liaison between the English-based players and the local coaches is a good point, because I think that's one of the main reasons that he's there. So obviously, Stapa, he was a player for us when we qualified for '98. So he's well known by the coach, and obviously has a relationship there. And he's a coach in his own right. I think he coaches at the under 23 level over in England. I think it's for a championship team. He's under 23 coach. So obviously he has his licenses. He has some experience. So to have another assistant coach, I think the squad, not the squad, but the coaching staff is way too thin. I noticed they said that we have a video analyst now, so that's a step up. We have a new assistant coach, but unfortunately we hired one assistant coach and then fired the other. Reassigned, I guess is what they say, but pretty much fired. So it would have been good for us to have a full complement. I know we brought in Mara now. Mara is someone that I worked with when Coach Tuki, when we had the program here. So, congrats to Coach Gordon. But I think the timing is not great, because obviously you would love to have like continuity. So to bring in two new coaches at the same time and get rid of the only assistant that you had is not really the ideal way to be going about it. But hopefully this works out well. I think definitely Paul Hall is a good addition. And I'm hoping that both of the new coaches will kind of gel, because the important thing is the relationship between the head coach and the assistants, and making sure that they're providing you with whatever support that you need. And just listening to the interview that Paul Hall gave, it sounds like that was his role, pretty much to be the liaison between the English players and the coach. And to obviously give his ideas as well. I'm sure he has a lot of footballing ideas, whether it be tactical, whether it be man management and things like that. So good addition. I'm just not really happy to see Wade get dismissed in the way that he did.
I share the same views as you do, Coach. We've been, through some rocky times, where, there were issues with players and the organization. And now we are at a phase where we should be fine-tuning, and we are now kicking, persons through the door. We don't know the definite situation. We can just listen to what is being said on the media. But one of the things, like you said, the timing is, for me, is really wrong. If he was apart from the beginning, and this is the moment now where he will be a part of the team, going to the Gold Cup and the World Cup, then the man should remain in his position, in my opinion, because he has been there from the start. But Merangard to come in, what should we expect from Merangard? What impact will he have now on the players?
It's difficult.
It's difficult.
That's difficult because new coach, players don't necessarily know him. I know he was sort of Coach Duki's right-hand man with the U23s. So he has experience of, being in support of a head coach. So I don't know what role he's going to have to play, because, backroom staff, there's all kind of different roles that you can play depending on what the head coach wants. So we'll see. I'm just hoping that the relationship between the head coach, we know he has a relationship with Paul Hall already. Meron seems to be the selection of the federation. So I'm hoping that there's no friction there. I'm hoping that, he's accepted into the fold. and can play his part, because I think, it's good for us to have at least two assistant coaches. Like for the longest time, we've had Jerome and Jerome alone with Warren as the goalkeeper coach, and I think that's really thin for our international team. So for us to get a second assistant coach, and it seems like we have a video analyst, I'm waiting to hear what the details are of that and what that role is going to entail. But that's important as well, because and I think we talked about it in our general group about video analysts and all the different things that you have to do to prepare a team, advanced scouts and things like that. So we're way behind the ball with that. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction.
I'm glad you mentioned the whole video analyst, part, because we spent probably an hour discussing, the situation. So that's a good start to see where we're at, and definitely it is a crucial part, of a setup, and to really analyze teams going forward. We spoke about, Meron coming
I'm gonna
in.
switch around my phone, because I think I didn't realize my battery wasn't charged. So I'll charge.
Yeah, we mentioned Meron, coming in now at probably the worst time when you need to bring in a coach, which is, games. The start of the competition is few days away. What will he bring forward is, well, I can say what he will definitely bring forward is that he's a defensive coach. So we hope Paul Hall can come on board and have some, attacking, burst supporting, but it is the reality. So we lost Coach Gary James, and we're here at Football 90. We're talking about the final 23 players that will hit the field in a few days to represent Jamaica at the upcoming Gold Cup. I'm sure you guys would have had your own discussions about the selection and what this possible starting 11 will be, and we too await in the next few days to see who will get the ball rolling against Suriname in a few days' time. We saw the likes of Shamar Nicholson, Leon Bailey, Bobby Reid, Javon East, Cory Burke in the attacking area there, and we expect Andre Blair to hold his spot, to be a leader we know he is. And so let's see if we can get Coach here back, so we can wrap up the tonight's session. And I would like to say thank you to Akeem, Howard Wilson, Pim Johnson, and all our viewers who tune into Football in 90 tonight, as we speak on matters relating to our national team. As we go along, we'll definitely have some live, interactions with, our members here at Football 90 who will be at the Gold Cup game. So we'll definitely have game day analysis on. So remember to follow us here at Football 90 as we get those, things out there to the football lovers. So we don't know what happened with Coach Gary. So we'll definitely wait